Good evening, everyone. It's nearly 6 o'clock, so we're going to be starting our debate to get a head start. I want to welcome everyone to tonight's debate for the Georgia House of Representatives District 50 seat, and this is being facilitated by Student Leadership Johns Creek and the 2020 Johns Creek Ambassador Team. My name is Omer Mujawer. I'm a junior at Johns Creek High School, and I'm going to be your host tonight. And don't worry, I'm going to make sure that tonight's debate is a little bit more civilized than the presidential debate yesterday. Maybe it's not going to be as funny, but I can guarantee it'll be more substantive. And before we get into the debate, I want to remind everyone that the last day to register to vote in the election this November is next Monday, October 5th. And registering takes only 2 minutes of your time. And you can visit the link at the top of the screen. And you can also register online, and also note that there are 3 locations to drop off absentee ballots in Johns Creek in case that you don't want to drop it off in the mail. Those 3 locations are North Spruce Oaks Library, OC Library, and the Johns Creek Environment Campus. Be aware, do your share, and go out and vote. Now, let me introduce you to the candidates and student moderators for this evening's debate. And first, we have incumbent State Representative Angelica Couch of the Democratic Party, and opposing her is candidate Jalen of the Republican Party. And the student moderators for this debate, which you can see on screen, they're going to be the ones posing most of the questions tonight. They're Aditi Mohan and Mehar Nemani. And additionally, we have a question monitor of Elizabeth Douglas and some other members of the 2020 Johns Creek Ambassador Team that have helped us greatly in organizing and advertising for tonight's debate are Akhila Yellapragada, Ashu Chakragiri, Janice Nam, and Davalbhakta. I also want to thank Tina Dong, a member of the 2019 team, who's helped us immensely throughout this process. Now, let's establish some of the rules of the debate. We'll begin with opening statements from both candidates. They will have 2 minutes each to explain why they chose to run and how they would serve Johns Creek. In the following question and answer period, each candidate will be given 90 seconds to answer selected questions from our moderators. Then the other candidate will be given 60 seconds to rebut. And after, the first candidate will be given another 60 seconds for any final rebuttal. There will be a special segment towards the end of the debate where candidates will be asked possible questions from the audience that you've sent in. Or if you want to ask a question right now, type it in the Q&A chat section at the bottom of the screen anytime during the debate, and our question monitor will be able to choose from them. We request that all candidates keep their answers short and concise and within the time limits so that we avoid something like what was happening yesterday. Please be respectful and mindful of others in the chat and in the Q&A sections. Now, at the end of the debate, both candidates will receive 2 minutes for their closing statements. Candidates, I want to wish you good luck. Let the debates commence. Now, let's get into the opening statements. Candidates, as a reminder, you have 2 minutes each to deliver your statements. In it, that we also ask that you answer these 2 questions. What motivated you to run for office? And if elected, how would you serve Johns Creek? Representative Couch, since your name comes first alphabetically, you may speak first. Your time will begin when the timer starts on screen.
Thank you so much. And first of all, I want to thank the student leadership and the student ambassadors for organizing this debate and giving Johns Creek the opportunity to hear from both candidates. You will hear 2 very different versions and visions for Johns Creek and Georgia. I've been the state representative for 2 years now, trying to be your voice, working on the issues that people in our district care about, like healthcare, education, economic development. These are the things that are dear to our heart. And until the pandemic hit, most of the things that we were discussing were really about education. But the pandemic really changed the way we see and do things in Georgia, and it has affected all of our lives. Just to give you a short story, both my husband and I had COVID, and I know personally how this virus can affect your lives. And when I recovered from COVID, I organized, or I reached out to community leaders, local charities, and stakeholders to organize delivery or organize getting critical protective equipment to local hospitals, the frontline workers, and even it was so successful that we even could deliver it to critical areas in South Georgia that were at a very, very dire state at this moment. For the next, when re-elected or if re-elected, my goal will be to continue on the path where I've been starting and began, continuing to be your voice in the State House, listening to your concerns, representing you to the best of my abilities, and talking about the issues that are dear to all of us. And one stands out, especially in the pandemic, is that giving affordable quality healthcare to all Georgians.
Thank you so much, Candidate Kaushi, that your time is up. Now, Candidate Lin, you may deliver your opening statements. Your time will begin when the timer comes on screen.
Well, thank you. Good evening. I want to first thank all the students from Student Leadership Johns Creek. You work tirelessly for this forum to provide platform for candidates to share the issues that we care about, and for the citizens in Johns Creek to make informed decisions when they cast their votes on the election day. I'm a husband, father of 2 grown children, and a new proud grandfather, and I'm running for State House District 50 representative. My campaign is about preserving the American dream, and it's about safety, accountability, and prosperity. I believe these are the issues that people in Johns Creek care about. I'm a first-generation immigrant. I was born and raised in Taiwan and came to the United States when I was 22 years old. I'm a 33 years Georgia resident, and I live in Johns Creek for over 20 years. This is the place where I chose to build my home, having family, and build my career as an entrepreneur. I'm passionate about our small business community. They are the backbone of our economy. My top priority as your state representative is growing our economy and creating jobs. In the past 30 plus years of my career, I've been a job creator. As Georgia coming out of COVID-19, we need to have leaders with real world experience who can jumpstart our Georgia economy. Georgia has been the #1 state for businesses for 7 years in a row. And we cannot jeopardize this tremendous success and must continue establishing and refining policies that keep our competitive edge in making Georgians first. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Candidate Lin, for your response. Now I want to give it away to Aditi and Mehar, who will be asking questions to the candidates.
Thank you. Our first question tonight is for candidate Lin. Since there was so much controversy with mandating masks, if we were to have an FDA-approved COVID-19 vaccine available in the spring for Georgia residents, should it be mandatory for all residents of Georgia with no exceptions? If yes, why so? And if not, why not?
What I love the most about America is our freedom and liberty. And I believe every American, every individual has the right to choose. And I understand pandemic and the virus is a public safety and public health issue, but I think in the
Candidate Lin.
individual, so, or not, that's their personal, yes.
I think you
Go
cut
ahead.
that off for us. Sorry, but you're back now, so you can just continue your response.
Candidate Lin.
Oh, so I believe that should do. Did I get cut off? It's like
Yes, it did
Okay.
get.
All right. So I believe this is a personal decision, and but certainly I would encourage when vaccine is available that I would encourage everybody who choose to take.
Thank you so much for your response, Kendallin. I know that you unfortunately cut off, but in order to keep the debate going, we just want to make sure that we are able to have enough time. So,
Candidate Koch, I'll repeat the question for you. Since there was so much controversy with mandating masks, if we were to have an FDA-approved COVID-19 vaccine available in the spring for Georgia residents, should it be mandatory for all residents of Georgia with no exceptions? If yes, why so? Or if not, why not? You have 1 minute for your response.
Thank you for the question, and I say let's follow the science. Every scientist says that the one thing that protects us from this virus right now and would get us out of the crisis is if everybody would wear a mask. So it is, let's not politicize science. This is about doing the right thing for protecting others. Wearing a mask will help you protect your family, your loved ones, and it will keep us all safe. It will make it easier and quicker that our children can go back to school. And sure, once we have a vaccine, we can then start about easing the mandates or easing the procedures. But right now, we do not have a vaccine. So right now, we do have the right thing and follow the science, so wear a mask.
Thank you, candidate. Candidate Lin, you now have 1 minute to respond.
Well, and actually, I'm not opposing of wearing masks, and I think it's important to wear a mask when we're exposed to the public. And also, like Ms. Koch, that during this pandemic, in the last 3-4 months, actually in the last 6 months, I also represented various communities to donate, I think, over 100,000 pieces of masks to various state and county departments where the frontline workers that need masks. So, but I just don't publicize those activities and events. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate.
Okay, so on to our next question. It's for candidate Kaus. Our planet is currently experiencing detrimental effects of climate change and depletion of natural resources. What specific policies would you propose to increase environmental and sustainability in Georgia?
Thank you for this question. I am a strong mute your phones. Climate protection. I'm a member of, I'm a supporter of Biden's energy plan. And I'm also a member of the Natural Resource Committee. As such, I strongly support policies that we will keep our water clean and our air clean. We had some critical issues here in Georgia with coal ash ponds, where we need to make sure that we deposit the coal ash securely in lime pits. We have an issue with oscillate engine, with the pollution, and we needed to take care of that. And this has shown that we need to make sure that we keep EPD, the Georgia Environmental Protection Department, keep the resources for EPD so that EPD can do their job and really ensure that everybody follows the regulations. So I will make sure to continue on this path to protect our precious Georgia environment so that we all can look forward to a strong, clean future.
Thank you for your response. Candidate Lin, I'll repeat the question. Our planet is currently experiencing detrimental effects of climate change and depletion of natural resources. What specific policies would you propose to increase environmental sustainability in Georgia? Well,
in the last 20 years of my career in the building industry, I am known to be a green tree hugger. So, you know, sustainability is one thing that I not only believe in, but also that it's in my business practice. So I'm in the development industry and building industry to preserve trees without clear cutting. That's, for me, it's an easy choice. We always try to preserve natural environment. And on the other hand, that you will never find anything that is any dimensional lumbers that is longer than 18 inches that have not been repurposed for something else. So we have not just believe in that philosophy, but also that I put into business practice. And that's just, and I
thank you for your time, Kendall, and
sustainability.
Thank you for your response. Candidate Kausch, you have 1 minute remaining.
I will continue to work with the different stakeholders here in Georgia, the Georgia Forest Association, on really working on carbon sequestering and making sure that we in Georgia are being #1, for example, in solar energy. We make great strides in there. I'm working with the solar industry on expanding solar further in Georgia. And these are the policy I will work on. I supported a bill to bring back the tax credit for electric vehicles. This was a bipartisan bill. So these are the things where we can really work across the aisle to move Georgia forward.
Thank you for your response. Candidate Lynn, this question is posed towards you. During the month of April, the economy entered into a global recession, causing record amounts of widespread unemployment as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Given the prevalent health consequences of lifting restrictions in certain areas, what is your proposed plan to safely stabilize the economy in Johns Creek and in the state of Georgia?
Well, thank you for this question. Since small business is my passion, and I am all for jump-starting Georgia economy. And I believe that coming out of, we need leaders that have real world business experience to help small business to get them going again. And coming out of this pandemic, I believe that we state representatives, we need to refine policies, business community to move forward.
Thank you for your response, Candidate Lynn. Candidate Kausch, I'll repeat the question for you. During the month of April, the economy entered into a global recession, causing record amount of widespread unemployment as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Given prevalent health consequences of lifting restrictions in certain areas, what is your proposed plan to safely stabilize the economy in Johns Creek and in the state of Georgia? You will have 1 minute for your response.
Yeah, COVID-19 has really laid bare the grave disparities in our state, not just in healthcare, but also in the economy. And it's really shown that we cannot separate economic prosperity from healthcare. The record numbers of unemployment hit our state and our city, and I'm still dealing every week with people who cannot access their unemployment benefits. So getting the economy back on track is in all our interests. I will support policies that really help small businesses. And I think one thing will be making sure that everybody can access to quality, affordable healthcare so that businesses and people that work in businesses can actually go back to work.
You will have 1 minute to respond. Also, if you refresh your video or something, because your network keeps going in and out.
I think if you want to stop your video, if I can do that.
Am I back in?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, candidate. Candidate Lin, you will now have 1 minute to respond.
Okay, and I believe, Ms. Kosh, that are for shut down economy in order to create public health, and it is supposed to support small, not safely open, and it's important that report so I believe
Okay, guys, I know we said we weren't going to have any technical difficulties and, the situation. I think that having a virtual debate obviously is a very difficult thing. So I really appreciate all of your patience, all of the candidates and everybody in the attendance. Candidate Lin, I think your quality may not be the greatest. If you want, we can maybe give you a couple minutes to maybe find a better area for your Wi-Fi connection, or if possible, you might be able to turn off your camera and just speak via, just with your camera off, if you can.
okay, but I think we're fine now, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fine now.
May I have maybe another 15, 20 seconds to rebut that question?
Okay, yeah, I think considering the fact that you weren't able to speak, we'll give you 15 seconds. So.
Okay, and I was saying that Ms. Kaushik was for the lockdown of the economy for the sake of public health, but I always believe in we should ensure
Okay.
with
I think your time, it's been pretty
that or is all
Candidate Lin, I think you've cut out again. Unfortunately. Let me see. Do you mind turning off your camera and possibly?
Okay, I just turned off the camera.
Okay, and we can hear you, right? Can everybody hear? All right, great. I think, unfortunately, we're just going to have to deal with it like this in order to make sure that we're able to hear you. That's really the most important thing anyway. So, all right, let's just move on to the next question, if that's all right.
Yes. So our next question is for candidate Kaush. Do you think that the Hope Scholarship should remain merit-based, or should a need-based component be added? If so, how would you fund it?
That is a very excellent question, and it's actually a question that we've been debating over and over again for many years. The Hope Scholarships is an excellent opportunity for our students to really get first-class education at our Georgia colleges, which provide a fantastic education. So I'm a strong supporter for the Hope Scholarship. However, we're seeing that a certain group of students has struggles more to access funding and financing for colleges who want and should go to college. And for those students, I would support an addition of a needs-based scholarship. And that will help students to fund critical tuitions and really open the door for students who want to succeed and could contribute to want to contribute to our workforce and our economy to get the education they want. I think we can talk about several ways how Keene finances. Right now, the Hope Scholarship is financed via the lottery. And if we can rebalance the budget, I'm sure we can find ways how to finance this. But in the end, we should look at the outcome. And the outcome will people who are productive and contribute to society. So I'd like us to think more long-term when talking about education and thinking about the long-term return investment we get out of providing education for those students.
Thank you for your response. Candidate Lynn, I'll repeat the question for you. Do you think that the Hope Scholarship should remain merit-based, or should a need-based component be added? If so, how would you fund it?
Well, I believe Hope Scholarship has been one of the best programs regarding to Georgia education. I am totally against to change a Hope Scholarship into a need-based scholarship. So here's the fact: less than 60% of Georgia high school seniors are completing federal student aid application. And currently the need-based scholarship is underutilized. And why do we want to change Hope Scholarship from merit-based to need-based? And it is important to reward students who work hard to achieve academically. Education is not playing t-ball, so everyone gets trophy for participation. And I'd like to make sure that our Hope Scholarship maintain a merit-based scholarship for our Georgia student. And also in Johns Creek area, I know so many families are using Hope Scholarship.
Thank you for your time, Candidate.
Thank you for your response. Candidate Kaus, you have 1 minute remaining.
Yes, while we may not in Johns Creek see a large number of students who would be candidates for the needs-based scholarship, I still think there is a large number of students in Georgia, and we have to think about the whole state of Georgia when we make those decisions that would really benefit from adding a needs-based component. I never ever said and will never ever say that we should change the whole scholarship. I also take issues with statements from my opponent who implies that poor and less privileged students are not working hard. I think that just is a very, very condescending statement and does a strong disservice to less fortunate families who are working hard to get a good education, and they should have the same opportunity as everybody else.
Well, may I respond to that? Because I have not mentioned they are a poor family, they're not important. And I think it's important for me to address this.
We'll give you a minute to respond.
Okay, thank you. So regardless you're coming from a wealthy family or poor family, and I think merit-based is about setting the academic standard for students. So regardless how wealthy or poor their families are, that as long as they achieve that standard, they will be qualified for Hope Scholarship. So it has nothing to do with how wealthy or poor the student's family is, but it's all about how hard they work academically to achieve and to be qualified for Hope Scholarship. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate.
Respond to that, you gave him the opportunity.
I think we gave him the opportunity mainly because he was speaking. Yeah, you can have 30 seconds for a rebuttal.
This is all about providing equal opportunities, and we all know that not all opportunities are equal. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Candidate, thank you. In all fairness, we might ask Representative Kosh if you could turn off your video as well.
Okay.
For the debate to remain fair. Thank you. This next question is posed to candidate Lynn. Under the Issues tab on your website, www.jlinforga.com, it says that the radical left is advocating for defunding our police and government-run healthcare. Their proposals will inevitably raise taxes on the middle class and cause chaos for Georgia's economy. Can you elaborate on how defunding the police will raise taxes, and how will this cause chaos for Georgia's economy?
Well, so for public safety, any government, whether it's a city government, county government, or state government, when there's an area that has high crime, it costs. Public safety, there is a cost for public safety. And it's fortunate that Johns Creek has been recognized as one of the nation's safest cities. And I'm proud to live in the city where law and order is highly valued and greatly respected. So I believe that we should support our law enforcement. And on my website, I'm a staunch supporter for law enforcement community. And I believe without a stable and safe society and environment and community, we cannot pursue our American dream. And that's the very foundation for anybody who is in the community. In order for them to pursue their dream, we have to provide a safe and secure environment. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate. Candidate Koch, we asked candidate Lynn to explain how advocating for defunding the police and government-run healthcare will inevitably raise taxes on the middle class and cause chaos for Georgia's economy. You have 1 minute to respond to this claim. Thank you.
Yes, I would say that I'm not buying into a divisive narrative that does not exist and is really not helpful. So first of all, the two things that are at the root of the issue. First, we need to rebuild or restart really building trust between police and communities. And we have seen it here in Johns Creek, and to be very clear, everybody supports public safety. That is something we all support. So I think we need to working on rebuilding the trust in the communities where those trust has been damaged. And second, we need to do something about the real issue, and that is helping the police deal with the mental health crisis we have. When I talk to police officers, they ask me always, well, can you do something? And I ask them, what can I do to help you? They tell me, can you do something about mental health? So these are the two things we need to tackle.
Thank you, candidate. Candidate Lynn, you have 1 minute remaining.
Well, so I actually agree with my opponent on this issue, on mental health issue. It is a important issue, and whatever at a state level that we can assist law enforcement to deal with this particular area, and I'm all for it. But what is important is we need to provide resources and training. And the unfortunate incidents that we have witnessed in the last few months, basically it's lack of training. And why do we want to defund police, as we have seen many in many cities across the nations that people are talking about defunding police? And I'm totally against the idea, because defunding the police will take away the necessary tools and resources and training that they so desperately needed to deal with the crisis that we face today. Thank you.
Thank you for your response. Candidate Kaush, our next question is for you. Under the platform tab on your website, angelicaforgeorgia.com, you mentioned that Georgia is one of the most gerrymandered states in the country, and say that you support legislation to create a nonpartisan, independent redistricting commission. Could you please elaborate on what this commission's purpose is and why it is important that it is created?
Yes, thank you for this very important question that is very dear to my heart. So gerrymandering will be at all of our in all our minds next year. Every 10 years after the census, the states will draw new districts, and this will happen new years. And those next year, those districts are being drawn in a partisan way. And I don't think that is just right, and it's not very democratic, because in the end, voters should choose their representatives and not the other way around. So an independent redistricting commission will enable us to do exactly that, to have fair and just districts where we can have fair and just representation, and not a representation that is weighed in one way or the other by one party.
Thank you for your response. Candidate Lin, we asked candidate Kausch to explain her position on gerrymandering and legislation she proposes to create a nonpartisan independent redistricting commission. You have 1 minute for your response to candidate Kausch's response.
I thought as both parties' members make up the state house. The redistricting efforts in 2011 were approved without question. That was back almost 10 years. And I look forward to work with my colleagues to produce similar results in 2021. And there is no question that there will be a great deal of scrutiny focused on redistricting process. And I'm confident it will be performed in strict accordance with state laws and with the best interests of every Georgian in mind. And I might want to mention that the last time when Democrats had majority in the state house back in, I believe it's 2001 or 2002, the district maps were thrown out by the court.
All right, thank you for your response, candidate. Your time is over, unfortunately.
Thank you for your response. Candidate Kausch, you have 1 minute remaining.
In the end, my opponent just said what is at the core of this issue. Politicians are able to choose their voters by influencing how these maps are drawn, and the majority makes those decisions and drives this process. So in a Republican-led state, Republicans will draw Republican districts. In the Democratic states, Democrats will draw Democratic districts. An independent redistricting commission will make sure that this does not happen, that actually the voter will have a say on who is their representatives. And I think in a democratic state, a society, that should be the way it is. It should be.
May I respond to that?
I think just for the sake of time, unfortunately, we got to move on, unfortunately, Candidate Lin.
Okay.
Thank you for responding, candidates. This question is posed to candidate Lin. How will you propose working with insurance providers to offer more varied and affordable options in our state?
Well, we must focus on improving the availability of medical services in Georgia. Investment in local hospitals and medical professionals to provide services is critical. We're fortunate in Johns Creek to have access to exceptional medical care, but even doctors here are struggling with Medicare and Medicaid do not reimburse them sufficiently to stay in business. And I believe that it is better to invest Georgia tax dollars to support accessible medical service delivery in Georgia.
Thank you for your response, candidate. Candidate Kausch, I'll repeat the question. How will you propose working with insurance providers to offer more varied and affordable options in our state? You have 1 minute for your response.
Well, Georgia is one of those states that decided not to expand Medicaid. And that was a decision done by the previous governor and by the current governor. That leaves over 5,000 people who are too poor to buy their health insurance, but make more than the federal poverty line leaves them out of being able to buy any healthcare. I always said, and I will say, and I stand with my Democratic friends in the caucus, that we need to expand Medicaid now to give more than 500,000 people the insurance they deserve. And it also, we cannot leave $3 billion of federal money on the table and decide we don't need it, especially not in the middle of the pandemic.
Thank you, candidate. Candidate Lin, you will have 1 minute to respond.
Well, medical expansion, there's a cost associated to it. And being a fiscal responsible person, I believe on everything that every decision that we make, we should always look at what does it cost? And I was taught count the cost before we build a house. And I just know that with medical expansion, it's inevitably that our tax will increase. So, and I think the voters will have to decide whether and I still believe right now we have a very decent safety net for unfortunate families who are not able to afford health care.
Thank you, candidates.
Can I respond to that?
Unfortunately, no, because of the lack of time. We will have to move on.
Candidate Kausch, my next question is for you. If you were granted the ability to push through one piece of legislation with no barriers, a guaranteed passage through the House and Senate and the governor's signature, what would it be and why? There will be no rebuttal to this question.
Thank you. And I just reiterate what I said before. Hundreds of thousands of Georgians are lacking a safety net, a medical safety net in the middle of the pandemic. We cannot blame the patients for getting sick. Instead, we need to think long term, and providing affordable quality healthcare for all Georgians should be at the top of our priorities. And expanding Medicaid will give critical healthcare to hundreds and thousands of Georgians they cannot get, which will in the end have negative consequences for all of us, because these are people who do not seek medical care when they need it. And now in this pandemic, we see that it won't even just hurt themselves. It will hurt people around them if they do not get the care they need, for example, if they're infected with COVID. So I would like to push to expand Medicaid now and bring critical health care for hundreds of thousands of Georgians.
Thank you, candidate. Candidate Lin, we would like to pose the same question to you. If you were granted the ability to push through one piece of legislation with no barriers, a guaranteed pass through the House and the Senate, as well as the governor's signature, what would it be and why?
Well, I can tell you, it won't be a one piece of legislation. And I believe that being someone who is passionate about small business and passionate about growing economy in Georgia, the first thing, I will not be naive enough to tell you there's one specific legislation that I will introduce. But I will tell you this, in the first 90 days, I will review any and all economic development and job creation related existing policies and do some of my homework before I make that decision.
Thank you, candidate.
Candidate Kausch, my next question is for you. In 2019, Georgia became one of the 9 states to pass HB 481, also known as the Heartbeat Bill. What is your stance on the current abortion policy in Georgia?
Thank you for the question. This was a very, very tough bill, and we fought it very, very hard, because I strongly believe that every woman deserves the right to make her own healthcare choices with her doctor and her family. And to be very clear, Georgia already has very strict regulations and limitations on abortion rights and so adding the restrictions that came with HB 481, which by the way is unconstitutional, and it was just is just not the right way to go. Women want the right to make their own healthcare choices, and they should have that right, and they are absolutely capable to do that. When it comes to healthcare policies, I want to make sure that we elect officials who do not push legislation like 481 that creates a certain agenda, and then its only purpose is to move up to the Supreme Court to pursue an agenda that costs the state tax dollars for litigation and really does not help provide critical healthcare services for women in the state. So I strongly oppose this bill, and I will oppose any restriction of women's right to make their own healthcare choices in the future.
Thank you so much for your response, candidate. Candidate Lynn, I'll repeat the question for you. In 2019, Georgia became one of the 9 states to pass HB 481, also known as the Heartbeat Bill. What is your stance on the current abortion policy in Georgia? You have 1 minute for your response.
Well, it is a certainly controversial bill. HB 4. Opponents view this as a health issue. I view this as a life choice issue. And I believe their life begins with conception, in the beginning of conception. So to me, we all talked about being the voice for the people. So besides being the voice for the people who can voice themselves, I will also be the one that will voice for the voiceless. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your response, candidate. Candidate Kaus, you have 1 minute remaining.
Well, I will make it clear that I stand for the women's right, or I want to protect women's right to make their own healthcare choices. And those are tough choices, but I trust women to do that together with their families and their physicians. And I'm also a little bit concerned with what my opponent just says, because what he implies that he would not even want women to be able to make their own healthcare choices when they have been traumatized by rape or incest. So why should women in Johns Creek trust my opponent to make any decisions about their healthcare?
May I respond to that?
No, because of the lack of time, we'll have to move on to the next question.
Okay.
This question is posed to candidate Lynn. The case of George Floyd and numerous others, such as Breonna Taylor, that were victims of wrongful police violence have led to a massive surge in protests and riots recently, including many in Georgia. Given you would represent a city like Johns Creek, what concrete initiatives would you propose to improve the current policing system? And do you approve of defunding the police or budget cuts to the police as a solution to this problem?
Well, thank you for the question. That's actually a similar question that we have covered earlier. If there's an issue or unfortunate incidents was caused by lack of training, we need to fully fund law enforcement to improve their training, their education, to deal with various scenarios when they're in the field. And I'd like everyone to be mindful that police officer, when they were out there, we can always second guess what could have and should have been done, but they oftentimes only have a split second to make those decisions. So I am totally for invest the education and training, and so I will be totally against defunding police. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Lynn. For candidate Koch, I'll repeat the question. The case of George Floyd and numerous others, such as Breonna Taylor, that were victims of wrongful police violence have led to a massive surge in protests and riots recently, including many in Georgia. Given you would represent a city like Johns Creek, what concrete initiatives would you propose to improve the current policing system? And do you approve of defunding the police or budgets to the police as a solution to this? You have 1 minute for your response.
Thank you. And first of all, I go back to what I said before. We need to rebuild trust in our communities between police, especially in Black and brown communities, between our police, and really invest in mental health and help police find the services, get police the support that they can actually attack those mental health crises. I find the issue of the statement of defunding police divisive and not helpful. So I want the best and brightest people in our community to be in law enforcement. That means they need to have a support, they need to all good wages, but I also want to continue to advocate for the proper allocation of resources so that mentally ill people can get the treatment. And we absolutely need to hold people accountable. I will refuse to stay silent when bad policemen, like we saw in the terrible case of the killing of George Floyd, when those are not being held accountable. And
thank you for your response. Your time is over, unfortunately.
May I rebut that, please?
Yes, candidate, you have 1 minute to respond.
Thank you. This is really interesting that I believe the question is about whether you support defunding the police. And my opponent has not made that very clear to our audience, whether you are for or against defunding the police. Thank you. That was just the point that I'm trying to make.
Can I respond to that? I think I gave a very clear answer that I think this is
unfortunately, although we do not have enough time, unfortunately, in this debate to have everybody have extra responses. Again, we want to avoid a situation where we don't have enough time and people are always cutting each other off. So let's just move on to the next question and try to keep this as orderly as possible. Thank you.
Candidate Kausch, my next question is for you. How many more kids need to be affected by gun violence before appropriate action is taken? This was the question that echoed throughout gun violence protests throughout the tragic incident at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School. However, the accused shooter passed a background check for the firearm he used. What is your proposed plan to ensure a gun-free zone in our students and communities?
Thank you for the question. And this issue, unfortunately, comes up too many times. I'm a strong supporter of common sense gun regulation that is in the best interest for the safety of our school and our students. We need to make sure that, and look, here's the thing, what I like to say. Everybody wants to feel safe. And some people feel safe when carrying a gun and some people feel safe when not carrying a gun. And we do have the Second Amendment in the United States. And that's all fine, but I'm feeling like why those people who cannot or do not want to carry a gun, or people or younger people who are unprotected populations in our school, why should they worry about it? Look, if we implement common sense gun regulations, have background checks, really make sure that everybody who has a gun has adequate training, then we all can feel safer. So I think it shouldn't be a controversial discussion. It should be just a discussion where we understand each other's needs for safety and come together and work together to make sure that we don't see another school shooting.
Thank you so much for your response, Candidate Kausch. Candidate Lynn, I'll repeat the question. How many more kids need to be affected by gun violence before appropriate action is taken? This was the question that echoed throughout gun violence protests following the tragic incident at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School. However, the accused shooter passed a background check for the firearm he used. What is your proposed plan to ensure a gun-free zone in our schools and communities?
Well, thank you for the question. Well, first of all, I'm glad my opponent recognized the Constitution. And I'm a true believer of you can't legislate morality or mental health. If any situation where gun violence was caused by a person who is mentally unstable, or they're just evil, and there are people out there that will commit these crimes. But on the other hand, vast majority of the gun owners are responsible gun owners. And I believe in and advocate for responsible gun ownership. And if you look at the majority, if not all the mass shooting locations, they all took place in a gun-free zone, school, theaters. So many of those incidents, we can look back and see if gun-free zone is really helping and can prevent these unfortunate incidents to take place.
Your time is over. Thank you for
your Candidate Kaush, you have 1 minute to respond.
Yeah, I continue to say that we are not doing enough because shootings continue to happen. And we need to, even if we say that, even if we say that, I'm glad to hear that my opponent says he is for responsible gun ownership. I think we can find some common ground there, and this is what I'm talking about. So I will continue to fight for common sense gun regulations and that honor our everybody's right to protect themselves in the way they feel deemed necessary and feel safe. But we need to come back to understand that everybody's safety is at stake, and we need to understand how we each other feel safe. And asking for common sense gun regulation is just what people want, and it shouldn't be even a matter of discussion.
Okay, thank you so much, candidates. I think we're going to be moving on to the concluding statements from both candidates. And before we do so, I want to remind everyone that the last day to register to vote in this election is next Monday, October 5th. Registering takes only 2 minutes of your time. You can visit the link at the top of our screens to register. And if you don't feel that it's safe to drop off your absentee ballots in the mail, there are 3 locations open in Johns Creek to drop off these absentee ballots. They're at the Northview Oaks Library, OC Library, and the Johns Creek Environmental Campus. So feel free to visit those places if you're going to be dropping off these absentee ballots. Now let's go on to the concluding statements. Candidates, as a reminder, you both have 2 minutes to deliver your statements. And Representative Kaush, since you began first, you may speak first right now, and your time will begin when the timer starts on screen. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to leave you with something I learned in the last 2 years. Politics is about people, and whatever decision we make at the State House affects people's lives. And we've seen this in the last year when we had to do these really very difficult budget cuts that took $1 billion out of public education. And now we are in a position where we have hundreds of thousands of people without healthcare. So whatever we decide, we have to make sure that it is about people and it is about you. I am committed to represent you to the best abilities to fight for the things you hold dear. And this is providing affordable quality healthcare for all Georgians, to give our kids the best education possible, and going back to fully funding public schools, which the Republicans just cut out. So, and getting the economy going in a way that it works for all of us and not was just for a few. This is the vision I have for Georgia. This is what I fought for in the last 2 years, and this is what I plan to continue to do to the best of my abilities. I continue to be accessible, and I want to be a voice for you, and I thank you so much for this debate.
All right, thank you so much for your concluding statement. Candidate Lin, now you may deliver your statement, and again, you have 2 minutes to deliver it. Your time will begin once the timer on screen shows up. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, friends, if you're like me, sick and tired of polarized politics in our nation and sometimes in our local politics, I'm with you. My commitment to you is I will always put people before party politics. My opponent in her short time in the state house, her voting record reminds me of those politicians in New York or California who push an ideology rather than what is good for their states. Please ask yourself this: should Johns Creek be like these communities now known for fiscal irresponsibility and declining standards? We need to have a strong voice for our district at the Capitol. We need pragmatic leaders who look for solutions instead of playing party politics. The American dream is still alive. I'm a living proof. As a 22-year-old kid, came to America, broke and struggling to order fast food in English. But in the process of overcoming and becoming, I accomplished many goals that I set for myself over the years. But the color of my American dream is fading. And that's the reason why I want to be your voice at the Capitol. Smaller government, lower taxes, protecting free market policy, and growing our economy. So for every Georgian who is willing to put themselves through hard work and be creative, they can always find their pathway to success. No one can or should guarantee equality of outcome. But rest assured that I will always be the voice for those who fight for equal opportunity to pursue the American dream. My campaign is about safety, accountability, and prosperity. As we face budget shortfall in 2021, there has not been a more important time that we need someone with real work experience to meet the challenges ahead. I need your support and vote to be that voice. Doing what I can, where I am, with what I have, is not something that I have to learn. It is my way of life.
Thank you, candidate Lynn, for your response. Your time is over. And I want to thank everyone who is watching this debate. All of you are acting your civic duties and helping shape our world and the future by listening tonight. I also want to thank both of the candidates, incumbent representative Angelica Couch and also Jay Lynn, for participating in tonight's debate and for reaching out to the public. Additionally, I want to thank every member of the 2020 Johns Creek Student Ambassador Team, as well as Tina from the 2019 Ambassador Team, for a resilient performance. We've definitely had a bunch of hiccups, and that's what our world is in 2020. And so we're gonna have to be able to live through this. And I wanna thank all of you again in the audience for being patient, for understanding that, you know, we're not perfect. We are just a bunch of high school students, but we do believe everyone should exercise their civic duties. And finally, I want to thank Mrs. Irene Sanders, our team sponsor. We are so extremely grateful for the opportunities and guidance that you provide. I cannot express enough gratitude for your tireless work in supporting civic engagement and youth leadership and the Johns Creek community. So again, thank you to everybody who is tuning in. But before the candidates leave, we are actually going to have all of the members of the ambassador team turn on their videos. And if you could please turn on your videos, let's see if it works. We're going to be able to take a screenshot.
I think we're missing a couple people. If we could all get online, then that would be great. Thank you. Ms. Sanders, you will have to allow them to become co-hosts just so they can turn on their video. Is that everyone now? Okay. 3, 2, 1. We'll take another one. This time on 1, in your head, say vote. 3, 2, 1, vote. Okay, I think I got it now. Thank you.
Thank you all for participating. This was very difficult to do a virtual debate with a bunch of teenagers that have only met on virtual screens. And we do appreciate that that you showed up and and worked through this with us.
And
And
I think
the
the students
teenagers
did a
really
fantastic job. So considering the circumstances.
everybody did a good job.
We have to
So we
work
wish
with-
you both the best of work.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Good luck,
Bye.
Ms.
Thank
Black.
you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You guys did awesome. Thank you.